Hi, Ulysses.
Hey, how are you?
I am not too bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's starting to get cold over here, but it's all good.
Where are we speaking to today?
I'm in Berlin. I'm based in
Okay,
Berlin.
yeah,
Yeah, in my
excellent.
lovely house in Berlin. No office.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Very different background to the one I'd normally have.
Yeah,
But thank you very much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to picking your brains about the German music market and just finding out a little bit more about where Nordic artists should be investing their time and their efforts, and I guess most importantly, their money and their
mhm.
budgets when they are approaching the German market. So to kick things off, could I just ask you to introduce yourself and maybe give us a bit of a background to your work in the music industry?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Ulysses. I started working in the music industry as a DJ when I still was in school, um, early 90s. And I actually wanted to go to university and study when I graduated high school, but I didn't really know what to study. So I started to work at a record label. And that's where it all started, mid 90s. So I worked at that indie record label, which was very successful with dance records. I think everyone remembers Cotton Eye Joe from Rednecks. That
Oh
was the time.
yeah.
Yeah, it was horrible. Yes, it was all of that. And out of that, I got several job offers. The one I picked in the end to go to was working for Mercury Records in Hamburg, which at the time was Polygram. And I was in promotion first, then I worked in marketing, then I worked in A&R. So I basically went through the three key creative parts in a major record label there. I did the whole merger between when Polygram became Universal. And at the peak of merging it all, then Universal decided to move to Berlin. So we moved with 400 employees to Berlin into new offices and went through the whole thing of the music industry goes down because there was Napster all of a sudden and cities were too expensive and a lot of people were kicked out and stuff like that. I kept my job luckily, but it wasn't the same thing anymore. And I switched and I worked for Sony Music here for a while. I ran Columbia over here in Germany. And after a year, when it was announced that Sony and BMG will merge, I didn't want to go through the whole merger process again and having a lot of people losing their jobs and everything. So I decided to start running my own business. That was 2004. And because I worked with Apocalyptica already from their first album onwards when they released that, and we're the same age, kind of in the same position. They were musicians, I was in the record label, but we're kind of close. So I started managing them in 2004. So I started my own business 2004, managing the band, traveled the world with them for 3 years. Try to find out what was there except record labels, and I found that there was a lot more than record labels when it's about managing a band. I did that for 3 years, went to a lot of places, tried to learn how different cultures work, how different markets work, did all that, and then little by little, towards the end of, what was it, 2008, 2009, I started to sign more bands into my management company, hire people into the management company, which build up to a team of 7 now, who are mainly artist managers who have their roster of artists they look after on day-to-day basis, and me overviewing it, and have digital marketing in there and stuff like that, and accounting and all these things which are needed. And about 7 years ago, was it 7 years ago? I think so. I decided that it's time to start a service for these bands instead of signing record deals all the time. Because I started managing a band called Royal Republic, went off really successful over here. Then labels they were signed to went out of business or were bought by bigger companies. And it was a constant struggle in the beginning for them keeping a record deal. So we said, instead of doing this, let's start a label service. We do it ourselves. That's my background. The people I had in the office had kind of the same background. Let's start doing this. Set up everything as a record label. everything would be the same as a record label, but whoever is the rights owner remains the rights, and we just work it for them. So we did that. We built that. We still do that. It's doing really well. What happened basically, which wasn't the initial idea, but what happened logically out of this, is the artist having a longer career and several records under the belts. Whenever they got records back, we started to release it through the label service, so the bands maintained their rights, and we could manage everything in the same place. That's where we're at. Not in an office anymore, now from home, but it's the same thing.
Well, I mean, it's super interesting to hear about the work that you are doing with Odyssey, and also the reasons why you set it up, because a label services platform can arguably offer a much more flexible setup for artists. And what we want to talk to you about today is Nordic artists stepping into Germany. And a lot of the artists that we have come through the IIR platform, for example, they already have their own setups at home. So how can a Nordic artist that has perhaps a label, that has an album in the Nordics, how can they work with somebody like Odyssey to take their first steps into Germany?
First of all, in the meantime, there are several label services. We weren't even the first one. There are several ones. So the system is, I guess, more or less the same for all of them. The rights holder approaches one of these companies. Let's say it's us. They come to us. We click to the music because that's kind of what we want to do. We want to understand what it is about. And then we basically say, if you have a record label set up, great. What do you really need? Do you need in the record label set up a marketing person? Do you need PR in there? Do you need administration? Do you need accounting? Do you need digital marketing help? Do you need a global marketing approach? Is it one country? Is it several countries? Do you want to have a label representative or just a band representative? So we kind of custom made it. I had a call last week with a German band, not a Scandinavian band, who just found their own label, have a distribution deal in place already, but nothing else. So now we build around what label they have, which is just a name, more or less, and their own band on it, and they want to start signing bands and a distribution, and we build anything else around it, including legal for doing contracting work. We represented several labels, American labels, who had no representation in Europe, where we did either GSA or their entire European representation and worked that from our office, and they had distribution in place, anything of infrastructure in place. All the signings were done in America. We just executed over here. And then we have artists who come to us who have basically nothing, and who are maybe looking just for a partner. They don't even know, is it a manager or a publisher or a record label? They want a partner. And then we normally say, before we start signing into management, we rather partner up, keep your rights, and we get you through the first releases and see whether we can work together and see what you really need. So bottom line, it's completely custom made. It's really about what is needed, and it needs to have conversation to find out what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I just mentioned, I mean, that's super important for artists that have already got domestic careers in their home countries, just to be able to have resources to access the context of the German music market and to figure out what special considerations they need to have. So from your experience as a manager, and also through Odyssey, and especially with working with the Nordics and Apocalyptica, do you think that there's any things that really stand out in Germany as different to other territories? And that could apply to the streaming versus recorded landscape, the live landscape. Is there anything that you found to be a bit of a quirk in your home country that Nordic people are a bit surprised by when they head to Germany?
The food? No, I'm just joking. Well, the first thing is language, right? Everyone in the Nordics, and I managed a band from Norway. I currently manage a Swedish band for a long time already. I manage several Finnish artists. Right now I'm managing 2. Everyone grows up with English television. There's a subtitle in it in local language, but they hear English as the main voice there. It's not like that here. Everything is German, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger speaks German here. He doesn't speak English. And that means language is a big problem over here. It's not a big problem when you go to Berlin, but it is a big problem when you go to the country.
Yeah.
And the difference in Germany to all, I would say, all the other countries in Europe, beside language, is that we are decentralized because of World War II, right? So we don't have a London or a Paris or a Stockholm or a Helsinki. We have, yes, Berlin is the capital, but Warner Music still is in Hamburg. Sony Music only just moved from Munich to Berlin. They were there in the music industry. And when you go to media, Apple Music is in Munich. Yes, Spotify is in Berlin, but then you find others who are in Hamburg. It's completely spread out. You cannot say, if you focus on getting the capital right, it will reflect to all the other markets. You really need to work all the other markets. We don't have nationwide radio. We only have localized radio. That's another thing we have from World War II. So we don't have nationwide propaganda opportunities. We have nationwide TV, but the slots are so limited that in the first step, when you want to come into the country, TV is not a factor. The factor is radio, and the factor is online, and radio is all localized. So if you want to work here, you need to work radio, and you need to have a lot of radio stations you work. You will not make it with playlisted on Radio 6 or on Yle in Finland or on P3 in Sweden. You really need to work several. Even in rock, where you always say there is nearly no radio, I think we have 7 or 8 who are important to work. I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
When it comes to the market, the Scandinavian markets are so far ahead with digital, but so is the Benelux, as we know, and the UK as well. But Germany is really picking up strongly. So the physical market, we just had numbers last week. The physical market dropped dramatically last year, this year compared to last year. Also a little bit due to Corona, because shops were closed, but it dropped. Download dropped dramatically. What we basically have right now is a stable 1/3 physical market, 2/3 digital market. And from the 2/3 digital market, streaming grows by 33% and downloading declines by 24%. Coming back to that 1/3 physical, 2/3 digital thing, the 1/3 physical we have also includes all catalog we have and all new releases. And you need to know that there's a strange thing in Germany. The charts we have, the music charts, are not only based on pure record sales. The charts we have in albums are based on the value of money for the record spent. So what we do is we create different formats of an album. We would have a normal cheap CD, we will have a vinyl, we will have a box set, we will have a bundle of something, just to increase the value per CD, because that ranks you higher in charts in the end.
Interesting.
Right? So you can get a top 10 record, but you only sell half of the records. Number 12 has sold or something like that, or number 15 has sold, but your value was higher.
Wow.
And when you now think about, we have 1/3 physical and 2/3 digital, that 1/3 is obviously gross. So it implements all those different super expensive formats of new releases, and it includes the full-on collection of all songs ever played at Woodstock, 100 CD box set. You have those as well. So if you take out all those expensive formats for new and for catalog, and you look at a frontline artist, it's more not a third, but a sixth is physical.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Digital is pretty strong, and digital is growing strongly. And we have a number when you analyze it where you see that there is a massive potential in digital, and that is we only have 9.8 million people who pay for a streaming service.
Okay.
So we have 85 million people living here, only 9.8 paying for it. Sweden, look at any Nordic countries, look at the UK, compare the amount of people living there and the amount of streaming payers you have, it's nothing. So we have a massive upside potential growing streaming over here.
Yeah.
Right. That is maybe the biggest difference to any of the other markets, that we are not where Norway is, not even close to when it comes to streaming. We can really make more money there by more people signing up for a premium service. And yes, we still have a strong physical market, but the physical market, when we are honest, is very much based on a fan base, is fan base driven because of these expensive formats you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you brought this point up, because I think that there is, I think Germany has quite famously throughout the music industry been sort of the last to jump on the digital train, if we can say that. And in some ways it's a brilliant thing, because it means that a lot of things have been regulated and a lot of mistakes have been made in other territories, so that German artists don't necessarily have to suffer on the back of that. But I think that throughout the Nordics, there is this idea that physical is still a super strong part of German music. So it's good to hear, or it's just interesting to hear, that digital is somewhere that the Nordics should really be concentrating their efforts when approaching Germany.
It obviously depends on the genre you're in, right? I'm sure you know we have that metal label called Nuclear Blast.
Yeah.
They are German, they're based in Germany, they have their own mail order system. It is super strong. We have a company coming from Germany, which is now acquired by Warner, it's called EMP. Super strong D2C business.
Okay.
Hip hop mainly goes through Amazon as outlets. Super strong.
Yeah.
The more pop it goes, the more digital it is.
Right.
That being said, what we see is that the demographic grows older for streaming service subscribers, and that brings more catalog streaming into streaming world in total, and it brings more adult music into streaming, more classical music, more guitar music, these things. And it's not only urban anymore, and it's not only dance anymore. When it is urban and dance, I think you can more or less forget about physical completely.
Okay.
Right? When it is anything, when it has a guitar in it, you need physical as well.
That's a good tip.
It's very basic, but that's what's really needed. And you need vinyl. It's a strong vinyl market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We still have a lot of the music industry over here run mainly dominated by the majors having that interest. They always protected record stores here. So where in other markets, the market, by changing into streaming, basically vaporized record stores, they were always been protected here for years. When it was clear you go to a streaming platform first and then you release your physical after. I have that in America all the time. Here, for years, we did physical first and streaming after, just to protect record stores.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, there's a bunch of different demographics, obviously, using streaming services over there. But if we're talking about a new emerging Nordic band or artist that are taking their first steps into Germany, where would you recommend that they invest their time and efforts? Is playlisting a good way to build a fan base over there, or should all of their efforts be in radio? What would your recommendations be?
The question is a little bit, what is the strategy? Where is the income source for the artist?
Yeah.
If recorded music will be the main income source for the artist because they're not touring that much, then it's streaming.
Yeah.
And playlists can be right thing. And connecting different online outlets with your DSPs. If in the end it's touring, then it's a different approach. That being said, as I said, it's not centralized. It's not like not like an American band coming over and playing Paris and thought they played France, right? It's you need to, when they play France and when they play Paris and Amsterdam and London, they would at least play 4 or 5 German shows, always in the past.
Yeah.
And being in the record label, we always said if the band isn't committed to do at least 20 shows on an album cycle in Germany, we don't even start working them.
Right. Okay.
That would be the only way to get them into all these different places in the country, to all these different radio stations, to all the different events being possible in connection with radio and all these things. So if the band wants to make money live, then the mixture is different. Playlist isn't that essential anymore. It is important, but it isn't that essential anymore. It takes long over here. And I think the first step you need to take is you need to have someone working for you who speaks the language, seriously. Yeah. I think trying to plug your music from any of the Nordics, speaking English or speaking Swedish, Finnish, or Norwegian won't work. You need someone speaking the language. And then it's a mix. It's when are you in the market? What are your radio targets where you go for? Radio is very important. What are your radio targets you go for? How do you time your releases on streaming platforms with radio and with when you are on the market?
Yeah.
Do you have a history already in your home country? What's the demographic of that history? How can you work in that demographic? Are you coming out of a strong genre? And how can you activate the genre? That is kind of the essential way to start it.
Yeah. And we haven't touched on touring too much throughout the whole of the IIR conference because of the year that we've had.
Yeah, of course.
Because of the uncertainty of what's going to be happening next year. But there are some very sort of famous events that take place in Germany, such as Reeperbahn Festival. Are these the kind of places that you'd recommend new artists to be aiming to appear at?
Yeah, totally. Do Reeperbahn. It's a little bit like South by Southwest or Great Escape as well. You need to do it at the right moment. It doesn't help you have nothing and then you just go to Reeperbahn and you think that's it. But Reeperbahn is a piece in the puzzle. Then we have a lot of festivals, and I hope, knock on wood, a lot of them will survive. But we have a lot of festivals. We have a lot of festivals where you only have 1,500 to 2,000 people on a night or on a weekend. But these are the essential events if you want to build up anybody. If you only target to play the massive Rock am Ring, Hurricane kind of events, you will not succeed because you will end up on a not important stage at a bad time of the day. And only a few people will see you, if even those 1,500 to 2,000 of a small festival. While if you play 15 of those small events, you all of a sudden start to find a following.
Yeah.
And you find the following also outside of the cities, which is essential to work in the country.
Yeah.
So Reeperbahn is important for that. There are events which are, depending on the genre specific for newcomers. There are other events like CO Pop in Cologne, for example, or there is a little convention in Leipzig as well you could go to. And then you have radio stations who have events where you should try to work with. And you have various media partners over the years who have various events. So if you find a media champion, you try to go to their events also to find your audience there.
Yeah, absolutely. The panel that's coming after this is actually, we're going to be digging more into the media landscape and who the key players are and where we can tap into things there. But we have about 5 minutes, just under 5 minutes left. So I think we'll start wrapping up because we've had so much brilliant insight from you today. I feel like I've learned a ton. And so I'd just like to wrap up by asking just to summarize what we've been chatting about, really, what would you say are the 3 most important things that a Nordic artist or a team that are approaching Germany should absolutely bear in mind? And please feel free to sum up the points that you've already mentioned, or if there's anything else that you'd like to add in that you feel we haven't touched on that's really important, then please feel free.
Find people here who represent what you do, and make sure that they're available and have time. The market is big, so a lot of people come here. It's competitive, and it doesn't help you work while the workload for the person you hire is too high. But find that German person to help you in the market.
Your German champion.
You need a German champion. Otherwise, it's very, very, very difficult. Have time. Reach out, find that person early. Have time to plan well. Have proper time to set up well. And have planned time that you can go to Germany several times. That has different things. We all talk about this. How long do you need to set up for DSPs? And even that is 6 weeks while it's digital. But if you also, for example, aim for magazines, and yes, we still have monthly magazines, you need 3 months to set up for those magazines. You need to plan if you tour, you need to plan your touring clever with the festivals events in the summer, which maybe embargo you on headline dates in other parts of the year or not. This is why you need time for it. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, because the market is big, it's next to impossible to do it for no money. You need to have a little bit of a funding. I know that because doing that in Finland as well, things are so easy to start because it's one city. Little media outlets. The person you hire to do publicity will just do all your publicity and pitch at Spotify.
Yeah.
Here, you need to have someone to pitch at Spotify. You need to have a radio plugger. The radio plugger would not touch online. The online person would not touch press, and so on and so forth. So it starts to pile up. It costs you money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So find your champion.
Find the champion, and then take it from there. Have time. That's kind of the essential 2 pieces.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with us today and to share all of this wisdom. It can be a very daunting market. It's a very important market for the Nordic music industry, but it can also be daunting because it is so big. So we appreciate you breaking it down a little bit for us today.
Yeah. Well, you have one great thing. If you break it, or at least relatively break it, it influences so many of the markets around, even they are smaller. Austria, Switzerland, also the Benelux, also Poland and Czech Republic, that it's not all of a sudden those 84 million people living in Germany, but it's a lot more if you're able to make it in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is a key target, and it is definitely worth the time and investment to work this properly. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Ulysses. Really appreciate it.
Enjoy.
And thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.